This movie is so inconspicuous that you might be surprised to hear that it's very hard to write about. And what I'm reading now is actually a complete rewrite of the original script, you see, because this movie defies all analysis. It's The Snow Creature. Released in 1954 and directed by William Lee Wilder, the brother of the much more famous Billy Wilder. William, who I will just refer to as Wilder from now on, really is proof that talent isn't easily inherited. I went into this review thinking that it would be a great way to train my amateur film critic skill. It's ultimately an inconsequential film, notable only for being the first Yeti movie. And also, it's a movie that I don't care about. There are movies out there like The Vast of Night or The Lord of the Rings that I feel very deeply about, and I would hate to do a bad job discussing them. And there are also classics like Vertigo and Citizen Kane that I feel a certain responsibility to cover well. But outside of the possibility of there being one or two fringe weirdos out there, I know that nobody cares about the Snow Creature. I thought then that it was a safe target. What I didn't realize was that it was secretly a psychic weapon designed to attack film critics. It's easy to summarize, it's easy to say if it's good or bad. It's very bad. But it's very hard to say anything deeper about the film. That's for one simple reason. I don't think Wilder cared about this movie. Now, I am going to be very harsh about William Lee Wilder and the Snow Creature from here on out, and I will occasionally speak in generalities about Wilder. I am specifically talking about Wilder at the time that he was working on this movie. So when I say Wilder was incurious, lazy, and unimaginative, I am simply describing his work on this film. I haven't seen any of Wilder's other movies, and I didn't know the guy in real life. And while I can describe him with all kinds of negative adjectives, it's clear that Wilder had a baseline level of competence in movie making. These kinds of 50s B movies had an established visual language, and Wilder can follow those standards just fine. Where his budget does not let him meet contemporary standards, he makes a mediocre attempt at meeting them, or just gives up. There is nothing I would describe as creative or unique in his cinematography or his editing choices, which speaks to me of a director who is simply completely uninvested in his project. Unfortunately, this makes critique difficult. Okay, I can point out technical gaffes. I can point out reused footage. I can point out reversed footage. I can point out this awkward jump cut. I can point out that the costume looks bad. Or that this guy gets hit square in the back with prop debris. I can point all this stuff out, but it's like watching that old episode of Star Trek Arena and focusing on the Gorn fight. Yeah, the Gorn fight looks bad. It's a dude in a dumb rubber lizard man costume, and the fight choreography sucks. We all know that. But focusing on that is missing the forest for the trees.
No, I won't kill him. Do you hear? You'll have to get your entertainment someplace else.
Yeah, it was a science fiction TV show from 1967. The effects were bad. But that wasn't what the show was about. Also, if you want to focus on Star Trek silliness, you're missing the actual classics like Space Lincoln or This Space Dog. But back to the Snow Creature again. I believe that Wilder simply made this movie for money. You see, our current pop culture understanding of the Yeti comes from the 1950s. By now, the Himalayas had really opened up to Western explorers, and in 1951, this guy Eric Chipton took this photo of what appeared to be a giant's footprints in the Himalayas. And this photo is what really got the ball rolling on the Western Yeti craze. Hollywood, of course, had already had a big box office hit based on a giant ape-like creature in 1933's King Kong. Once the Yeti got popular enough stateside, it only made sense that someone would see dollar signs in another ape movie with an oriental twist. However, it was not actually the first Yeti movie. It was beaten by, and I apologize in advance for pronouncing this, Pekka Japatka Lumimiehen Jaljila, a Finnish movie about Pekka and Patka, which is like a Finnish equivalent to Laurel and Hardy, having a comedic encounter with a Yeti. That movie also came out in 1954, but 4 months earlier. So really, the snow creature is only the first Hollywood Yeti movie. But enough preamble, let's start talking about the movie itself. Now, we start as we mean to go on with this toy plane dangling over stock travel footage. And during the opening narration, we're introduced to our main characters, and what a lively cast they are. There is our lead, Dr. Parrish, who I will expound upon in a moment, and his buddy Peter Wells, a photographer. They've hired a bunch of Sherpas to lead them on an expedition, with Subra, an English-speaking Sherpa, as their main guide. Here in this scene, we're introduced to Tala, Subra's wife, who has come to see the party off as they head into the higher parts of the Himalayas. Now the plot really gets going here, where Tala is abducted in the night by the Yeti. Subra comes to Dr. Parrish and asks to lead the expedition after Tala. Dr. Parrish says no, and explains that they will instead continue with the job they were paid to do.
This isn't a hunting party. Thousands of dollars have been spent to finance this expedition, and he wants to chase a legend.
During the night, however, Subra takes the bullets out of their rifles and then takes charge of the expedition.
I'll shoot any man who doesn't obey.
You know can't shoot.
Parrish and Wells don't know how to get back by themselves, so Subra has them tag along on this Yeti hunt. And I know what you're thinking. This isn't a bad premise, on paper. You've got this party stranded in an inhospitable environment pursuing a dangerous and mysterious beast, while also dealing with some internal tensions, all with this innocent life at stake. That could be a really exciting movie, but you need good characters to make that work, and that is where the movie fails. Tala is someone we should be immediately sympathetic for, because she is without a doubt the most clear-cut innocent victim in the story. But this, the abduction, is the last you ever see of her. In a more clever film that could be a disquieting note that leaves the audience with an uneasy lack of closure. In this movie, it feels more like a plot element that Wilder simply forgot about. The trouble with Tala is that you have no sense of what is lost because we never get to know Tala before or after her abduction. When I describe Tala as merely being Subra's wife, I am not reducing her character to her relationships with men. I am accurately describing how the film views her. Tala is Subra's wife. She exists to get fridged, to give Subra motivation to mutiny, and that's all Wilder cares about when it comes to Tala. Subra himself should also be a good character. He is a grieving husband lashing out and acting desperately, and that should be fireworks on screen, but again, Wilder doesn't care about Subra. Subra exists to cause conflict for Dr. Parrish. The movie always seems to hold Subra at a distance. The film gets close enough to explain his motivations, but we never, as the audience, have to sit in those feelings with Subra. He doesn't get to really monologue about his lost love. We don't get to see his camaraderie with his fellow Sherpas or his brother, and he is unceremoniously written out of the movie a bit past the halfway mark. He's also, in my opinion, written very strangely. He starts out normal enough, but then starts going into these kooky moments where he laughs a lot and gets drunk and acts all cryptic and mysterious. You could argue that Subra is becoming unhinged because he's lost his wife, but it doesn't come across that way for me. It just feels like another way for Subra to be alienated from the audience. Is he sympathetic, or is he a mysterious, vaguely threatening native character?
Shekar, come in. Shekar, come in.
Subra only want to kill radio machine.
Or is he just a drunk? It's unclear, and it makes him hard to care about. And Peter Wells is a complete non-entity. He exists for Dr. Parrish to bounce ideas off in dialogue, which is redundant because Parrish can monologue in narration. He also exists to create some superfluous conflict in the second half. Other than that, well, he likes a drink.
Have yourself a nightcap. I'll be right back.
Oh, thanks, old boy. I will. Well, I think I need a drink.
Need more than that. Wait a minute. What about the radio?
So now we get to Dr. Parrish. Dr. Parrish is the worst part of this film, and you're stuck with him the whole way through. He compares the Sherpas to animals.
Wells and I kept up with the Sherpas, who were much like human mules under the weight of our heavy supplies. On the seventh day, as we were nearing the town of Shekhar, I decided to herd the natives straight to the police.
He laughs in Subra's face when Subra tells him his wife has gone missing.
Oh, you mean the abominable snowman, the phantom of the Himalayas, marauder of women.
We go after Eddie. Find him.
Oh,
He's proven wrong when he dismisses the existence of a Yeti. He threatens to shoot innocent people in the name of money and scientific progress.
I'll shoot any man who doesn't obey.
He's dumb.
Because of my decision, I felt that Subra resented and disliked me. Marauder of women.
He abuses prisoners. And worst of all, he is bland.
Yeah, go on.
But I know what you're thinking. He's such an unrepentant heel that he must redeem himself or receive some kind of poetic justice. Nope. Okay, spoilers for later in the review. They do lose the Yeti at the end, but they still have the body, so Parrish still made scientific history from his expedition and lost nothing in the process. So the first half of the movie inevitably fails because the characters are so dull. It's broken into two modes, one where they travel across the Himalayas in the form of a montage, and another where they have the character scenes at camp. Now, people on YouTube and elsewhere online have actually frequently complained about how much boring walking is in this film, but, you know, for the budget, they are executed competently, and they let you listen to the score, which is one of the better parts of the film. The camp scenes where the story happens are a real drag, though, due to how weak these characters are. The climax of the first half is when Subra and company find this cave where the snow creature lives. Here, it's revealed that Subra's motivations turned from rescue to revenge at some point off screen, and we meet the Yeti face to face.
Yeti. No! Tara! Tara! Get it! Get it! Get it! Get it!
I know it's a little hard to tell what was going on in that scene. I don't know if it was a problem in the original print as it was filmed, or an issue of the surviving transfer, but the scene is way too dark with these awkward edits. These hard-to-see blobs are the Yeti's family, his mate, and his child. In an attempt to protect them, the Yeti tries to close the tunnel, but ends up hilariously killing them and knocking himself out. Now, revealing that your villain has a family right before they are caught or killed is usually an attempt by the movie to elicit some kind of sympathy. However, the movie only shows the family from far away, they're immediately killed, and Parrish happily abuses the Yeti from then on without it ever really being framed as wrong, except by me. And the Yeti is still, of course, a violent monster who continues to attack innocent women when he escapes. For all the film's talk later on of if the Yeti is a man or a beast, the film never seriously wants to consider that question. And if you thought the movie was bad so far, you ain't seen nothing yet. During the chaos, Parrish and Wells get their guns back and lead the Sherpas and the Yeti back to town.
I decided to herd the natives straight to the police.
Here, Parrish pardons Subra of any criminal charges. I think the movie genuinely assumes we should like Parrish, but it doesn't actually undo or make up for any of the harm he has done. The movie trots Suber out to graciously accept to make Parrish not pressing charges seem like this great and magnanimous thing. Anyway, it's here that Parrish arranges for the Yeti to be transported back to the States, and it's in this scene that I realize that these Sherpas are speaking Japanese.
Moshi? Hi. Hi. Your telephone call. Will you take it in the next room?
Apparently most Asian actors in Hollywood at the time were Japanese, and they would be cast for a variety of Asian characters. So Wilder looked at his script and realized that these foreign characters would probably not be speaking English. And now instead of actually doing some research and seeing if he could get someone to translate in Nepali, or Sherpa, or Tamang, he just said, well, you guys already speak Asian, that's good enough for me. So all the Asian characters in this film speak Japanese. Anyway, with the office visit out of the way, Act 2 begins in earnest, with the Snow Creature and Dr. Parrish arriving in America. Here we meet a whole bunch of characters who never show up again, including Parrish's wife, and we're introduced to the new type of filler that replaces the mountain climbing. Boring conversations in offices.
Dr. Parrish.
Yes, may I?
Of course. I'm a little early, but that's all right. Dr. Parrish, Dr. DuPont.
Oh, how do you do?
How do you do, Doctor?
Has Mr. Corey been here?
Not yet. Won't you sit down?
Well, thank you.
Cigarette? Oh, thank you.
What an unusual find for a botanist to make.
Yes, it is.
And you say you also saw a female?
People online complain about all the hiking in this movie, but, that's a natural part of a Himalayan adventure film. These awful dialogue scenes are far worse. There's a minor snag at customs, you see. Peter Wells had taken a photo of the Yeti and published it. In the paper he had referred to it as a snowman, whereas Dr. Parrish had listed this cargo as an animal, a snow creature.
So that's it? What, we some kind of...
A snow creature. So the government has called down a specialist to take a look at the Yeti and determine what he is, because if he is a man, he would have to go through the immigration system and would have legal rights. A lot of people online have complained about this snag because it's silly, but I personally quite like it in concept. A movie exploring that idea could be genuinely interesting, exploring the line between an animal and a human. But instead the Yeti just escapes and starts attacking people so that we can go back to being a mundane creature feature. The worst sin about this whole custom snag, and I think this is why people hate it, is that it is irrelevant to the rest of the movie. You could have just had the creature escape and not waste all this time talking if none of this actually mattered to the rest of the movie. What is relevant is this guy, Lieutenant Dunbar.
I'm Lieutenant Dunbar, police.
It's Parrish and Dunbar who lead the manhunt trying to catch the Yeti, and it's here that the movie breaks down completely in a way that is very hard to describe. I thought in my first viewing that Parrish was going to maybe face some kind of retribution here. I mean, think about it. He goes on his expedition to the Himalayas, Suber's wife is abducted, he ignores Suber's pleas for help.
Daughter of women.
Then the Yeti gets loose in America, and is specifically shown in the movie to consistently attack women. Dr. Parrish has a wife. The Yeti catching his wife is a very obvious direction for the story to go. That would at least create some kind of thematic pattern to things, but that is not what happens here. The movie is instead about the Yeti wandering around nondescript city shots, while Parrish and Dunbar sit around in an office talking about how to catch the Yeti. They finally realize the obvious, that the only way the giant ape man is moving around undetected is by going through the sewers, and then they shoot it to death. The end. This makes up the last 20 minutes of the movie. And that is why this movie is so hard to talk about. Nothing is learned. It's just, man brings Yeti to America, Yeti gets loose, man shoots Yeti. Film criticism is supposed to be more than a dry recitation of the plot and a simple recommendation or warning. It's supposed to be about interpretation, deriving meaning, engaging in an open dialogue about the critic's personal response to the work in question, and what the work's place is in the wider context of film. But how can you do that when a film says nothing, conveys no emotion, and does nothing to stand out? The last 20 minutes are so dull that they are meaningless to me. I struggle to find words for them. They are monotonous, directionless, a little confusing, and are all build-up for an awful, horrendous anticlimax. And sure, despite all of the frustrated rambling I've said in this video, I generally want to be a more positive type of critic. However, negativity should not be held off the table, and I think honesty is the most paramount virtue in a good film critic. So if I have an honest negative opinion, I feel I should express it with one caveat. I must have something meaningful to say. I have nothing meaningful to say about the last 20 minutes of The Snow Creature, but I do have one kind of positive thing to say. There's a moment in all this dull meandering where we cut to a slow panning shot in a dark part of the city. And oh god, I thought, it's another ponderous scene where nothing happens. There's a scream from a woman off camera. No good, I thought. The Yeti attacked another nondescript blonde lady. But then the camera keeps panning, and eventually we see a man kicking a lady out of an apartment, and they have an argument about it at the door as the relationship is being broken off. And I thought this was a clever little subversion of expectations. You thought it was the Yeti murdering a lady, but it was actually something more mundane, and you just see a little slice of life inside of this wider city. It helps build a sense of place, and in the back of your mind you're thinking, where is the monster? And of course, as soon as the lady's by herself, it attacks her. Now don't get me wrong, this is hardly the best man-dumping woman scene in cinema, but it was something kind of positive. As for the other 20 minutes, I have nothing meaningful to say. Stay tuned for the next movie review from the Snow Creature movie pack, and by stay tuned I of course mean subscribe and hit the bell. Don't watch this movie.
What, we some kind of...
Snow Creature.